After my parents' separation, my mother, my brother Jackie, and I ended up in an apartment that looked more like a shoebox. It was all we could afford at the time. Without my father around, the responsibility of keeping us safe and fed fell entirely on my mother's shoulders. She became our superhero, working day and night in 2 different jobs. Although the apartment was simple and located in a somewhat dangerous part of town, we did our best to call it home. My mother had a clear rule: don't leave the apartment and don't open the door for anyone when I'm not here. I, still very young, didn't quite understand the risk I was facing, but Jackie, who was older, kept an eye on me. Jackie was the kind of boy who couldn't sit still. If there was trouble, you could bet he was in the middle of it. One night, with our mother working late, Jackie came up with a crazy idea: to explore an abandoned apartment in our building. The building was an old relic, with staircases that resembled a maze. We lived on the 5th floor, but getting there was a real adventure. And there was this door, at the end of the hallway on the 4th floor, always closed with boards. Jackie made up stories about that place, saying it was haunted or hiding some dark secret. I was terrified just passing by, but that night, my brother was determined to find out what was there. After pestering me a lot, I agreed to go with him. We tiptoed through the empty hallway until we reached the door. Jackie, with his knack for getting into trouble, managed to open the door, and we went in. Inside was chaos. There was garbage everywhere, and the smell was stomach-turning. The only light came from outside, from the street lamps, barely illuminating the interior of that abandoned place. Suddenly, we heard a deep, scary voice coming from the back of the apartment. "I know you're here," it said, and my heart almost stopped. Jackie signaled me to stay quiet, and we hid behind a pile of debris. The voice got closer and closer, and I could feel the fear creeping up my spine. But Jackie, with a courage I never imagined he had, suddenly jumped on the man and knocked him to the ground. At that moment, we ran as if there were no tomorrow, until we reached our apartment again, where we locked ourselves in and waited for our mother to come back. That crazy adventure was etched into my memory forever. We never told our mother what happened, afraid of the consequences. It all started when I left behind the quiet life in a small Midwestern town to venture into the bustling metropolis of New York. I had big dreams, shining eyes, and an insatiable desire to absorb every fragment of what the city had to offer. The change wasn't just a change of address, but the promise of a new life, full of opportunities and adventures. My new home was a modest apartment on the 25th floor of a skyscraper, situated in the heart of the city. The view was breathtaking, with a sea of shimmering lights stretching as far as the eye could see, a constant reminder that I was at the center of the universe. At least, that's how I felt. The nights were filled with the incessant sound of urban life, a chaotic yet somehow comforting symphony. Despite my fascination, not everything was perfect. My downstairs neighbors, for example, were a constant source of intrigue and, on certain occasions, disturbance. One night, returning exhausted from my job at a popular bar in the area, all I wanted was to bury myself under the covers and escape into the world of dreams. But as I changed clothes, I was interrupted by screams coming from the apartment below. Initially, I tried to ignore them, but the screams became impossible to drown out. Curious and concerned, I approached the balcony of my apartment, trying to discern what was happening. The voices were clear now, a man and a woman amidst a heated argument. Phrases like, "You don't think I'm capable," and "I want to see you try," floated through the night air. The tone of the conversation made me fear for the worst. On impulse, I decided to intervene in my own way, banging with a broom on the floor, hoping the noise would make them stop. However, This only turned their anger towards me. The screams turned into threats directed at my apartment, and I, fearing to escalate the situation, retreated indoors, wishing I hadn't gotten involved. But the night still held more surprises. Just as I was about to drift off to sleep, a persistent sound at the door startled me awake. Heart racing, I checked through the camera system and saw my 3 neighbors, clearly agitated and seemingly awaiting a response from me. One of the men, imposing and with a threatening expression, muttered incessantly for me to open the door. It was at that moment, overwhelmed by fear and anxiety, that I decided to call the police. While waiting, I locked myself in the bedroom, praying for the situation to resolve itself without further consequences. The police arrived in time, dispersing the trio before things could escalate further. After that incident, I never heard from my neighbors or the police again. Life returned to normal, but the feeling of security was never fully restored. I reinforced the locks, but the unease persisted. The city I once loved showed me a dark side, a reminder that behind the dazzling lights lurk shadows and dangers. Time passed, and with the end of my lease, I made the decision to return to the Midwest. The big city, with all its promises and perils, had become a closed chapter in my life. Now, I cherish the tranquility and peace that only a small town can offer. After saving up and dreaming for a long time, I finally managed to move into the apartment I always wanted. I had just paid off my college debts, and with my current job, I could afford to live in a nice place that was big, beautiful, and modern. What I loved most about it was the little balcony, perfect for enjoying the sunrise and sunset or simply relaxing and contemplating life. The building was in a quiet neighborhood, and since I worked from home, having a larger space made all the difference, especially for setting up a comfortable office. Everything was going great until, a few weeks after moving in, I started feeling strange, as if someone was watching me when I was on the balcony. At first, I thought it was just my imagination or nerves because of a book I was reading. But over time, this bad feeling didn't go away, and I started avoiding the balcony at night. Then, one night, after a tiring day and a few drinks, I decided to ignore this fear and went to the balcony to mess around on my phone and get some fresh air. That's when I saw a light flashing in a window of the building across from mine. Someone was there, turning the light on and off quickly. When I stood up to get a better look, I noticed a man waving at me and pointing in my direction. I was confused, but I waved back. He stopped gesturing and just stared at me. I couldn't see who it was properly because of the distance. So, I decided it was best to go inside and forget about the balcony for that night. I couldn't sleep properly, thinking about what had happened. The next day, I went out to take care of some things and tried to forget all about it. When I came back, I went to the balcony to have some tea and noticed a little pink note stuck to the table, with a drawing of a smiling face and star-shaped eyes. The scariest part was that I had locked everything before leaving and when I came back. Since then, my perception of the balcony and the apartment has changed. I avoid going out, only leaving when necessary, and I still haven't told anyone in the building about what happened. I try to convince myself that it was nothing important, but I can't stop thinking about the little note with the smiling face and star-shaped eyes. I genuinely hope that nothing stranger happens and that I can continue to enjoy my apartment without worrying. But this story of the note and the feeling of someone watching me still leaves me quite unsettled. A few years ago, during a period of professional transition, I found an apartment to save money while I stabilized in a new job. The condominium was an oasis of tranquility, nestled in the heart of a peaceful community. Most of the residents were retired elders, seeking comfort in smaller spaces than a conventional house. On moving day, I noticed a young woman watching me from the window, something that caught my attention. She was incredibly beautiful, one of those people you automatically think is out of your league. Given my unstable professional situation, dating was far from a priority. In the following days, whenever I entered or exited the parking lot, I noticed the same woman watching me. I figured it was just curiosity, without giving it much thought. Near the condominium, there was a supermarket, very convenient for daily shopping. One afternoon, leaving work, I crossed paths with her in the supermarket aisle. It was an awkward encounter. We collided as I checked something on my phone. She apologized, calling herself clumsy, and it was then that I recognized my curious neighbor. The situation reversed the usual roles of nervousness, with her visibly embarrassed, which somehow relaxed the atmosphere. We talked casually among the supermarket shelves, and this casual conversation soon turned into something more substantial. I ended up inviting her to dinner at my apartment, since we were practically neighbors. She accepted, we set the time, and exchanged numbers. Dinner was an amazing experience. For hours, we talked, shared a meal, and enjoyed each other's company. To me, it felt like the beginning of something special, an adult encounter like I had never experienced before. However, the night had to end, as we both had to work the next day. We said goodbye politely, and I escorted her to her door, ending the night with a goodnight kiss. In the middle of the night, I woke up and noticed a shadow under the door of my apartment. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but the shadow persisted. Peeking through the peephole, I saw the same woman I had shared the night with, standing in front of my door, murmuring something inaudible. Confused, I sent a message asking if everything was okay, to which she promptly replied, but with a coldness that didn't match the person I had met hours before. Her behavior was unsettling. While trying to understand what was happening, she insisted via text that she could come back or that I could go to her. The situation escalated to a level of discomfort when she, still outside, suggested that I had no reason to be afraid. I then decided it was best to keep my distance, expressing that I needed to sleep. Even so, she remained there, motionless, for a few more minutes before finally returning to her apartment. The next day, I tried to contact her again, to no avail. She disappeared as suddenly as she appeared in my life. I left a note on her door, but never received a response. Since my girlfriend, Emily, and I moved into our new apartment in Portland, Oregon, we've been on cloud nine. It was our first home together, a significant milestone in our relationship. The apartment, freshly renovated, exuded a modern and welcoming charm, promising to be the perfect setting for the next chapters of our shared life. One of the biggest draws, at least for me, was a small path at the back of the building that led directly to a local diner, famous for its hearty breakfast. I'm known for my unwavering passion for bacon and eggs, so this convenience seemed like a dream come true. On Emily's first free Sunday, I suggested we take the morning stroll to the diner. The path, though short, had its own charm, surrounded by dense vegetation that gave the impression of momentarily being out of the city. However, our idyllic morning took an unexpected turn when we noticed an abandoned bag of clothes in the middle of the path. Although strange, we were more focused on savoring breakfast than investigating the origin of the bag. After a delicious breakfast, we returned and noticed that the bag had disappeared. I commented to Emily that someone probably had retrieved it, and we didn't pay much attention to what had happened. During the week, while Emily was at work, I frequented the diner, maintaining my morning routine of a hearty breakfast. The second time I passed by the path, I noticed the bag again, but this time at the edge, not blocking the passage. I thought maybe I had passed it without noticing it before. However, upon returning, I saw a man rummaging through the bag. His fixed and disturbing gaze made me quicken my pace, offering only a hurried, "Good morning." In the following days, I avoided the path, but curiosity got the better of me on Friday. As I passed by, I didn't see the bag, but I noticed two silhouettes hidden in the vegetation. I decided not to tell Emily about these encounters so as not to worry her or dissuade her from our morning walks. However, the following Sunday, as we approached the path, memories of the previous week flooded back to me. I hesitated but decided to proceed, hoping the strangers wouldn't be there anymore. Unfortunately, I was mistaken. The man and woman suddenly emerged, blocking our path. Despite Emily's efforts to engage in dialogue, they approached threateningly. In a panic, I chose to push the frail woman, who, despite her weakened appearance, managed to scratch my skin. Her sharp scream echoed behind us as we ran back to the apartment, where we immediately called the police. The officers found no one when investigating the path, only traces that the two had been living there for some time. The incident left us deeply shaken, knowing that these people were never caught. Since then, I avoid the path at all costs, preferring to make the short drive to the diner. So, guys, we've come to the end of another journey. I hope it made your hearts beat faster. If you enjoyed exploring these stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Give that video a like if you enjoyed it. Your support is the fuel that motivates us to explore even more of this dark world and share every discovery with you. I'm really curious to know what you guys thought of today's video, so let your imagination run wild in the comments. Tell us which part you found most intriguing or if you have any spine-chilling stories to share. Your participation is essential so that we can adjust our compass and head in the direction of the stories that make your hearts pound with excitement or fear. Until the next adventure, take care and keep your eyes wide open. And remember, it will always be a pleasure to be here with you.